transportation in Cuba is composed of a system of railways, roads, airports, waterways, ports and harbours. Railways. Total 8,285 kilometers. Standard gauge 8,125 kilometers. 1,435 millimeters. Gauge. Narrow gauge 160 kilometers. Gauge. Cuba built the first railway system in the Spanish Empire, before the 1848 start in the Iberian Peninsula. While the rail infrastructure dates from colonial and early republican times, passenger service along the principal Havana to Santiago corridor is increasingly reliable and popular, with tourists who can purchase tickets in Cuban convertible pesos. As with most public transport in Cuba, the vehicles used are second-hand, and the flagship Tren Francés between Havana and Santiago de Cuba is operated by coaches originally used in Europe between Paris and Amsterdam on the XD Express. The train is formed by 12 coaches and a Chinese-built locomotive, with the order of 12 new Chinese locomotives built specially for Cuban railways at China Northern Locomotives and Rolling Stock Works. Services have been improving in reliability, those benefiting the most are long-distance freight services, with the French train Havana-Santiago being the only passenger train using one of the new Chinese locomotives regularly. Various orders are in place for 100 locomotives from China and various freight wagons and passenger coaches. Metro systems are not present in the island, although a suburban rail network exists in Havana. Urban tramways worked until the half of 20th century in the cities of Havana, Matanzas, Cardenas, Cienfuegos, Camagüey and Santiago de Cuba. Roads. The total length of Cuba's highways is 60,858 kilometers, including paved 29,820 kilometers, unpaved 31,038 kilometers. Expressways include the Autopista Nacional from Havana to Santa Clara and Sancti Spiritus, with additional short sections near Santiago and Guantanamo. The Autopista Este Oeste from Havana to Pinar del Rio. The Autopista del Mediodía from Havana to San Antonio de los Baños. An autopista from Havana to Melena del Sur. An autopista from Havana to Mariel. The Havana Ring Road, which starts at a tunnel under the entrance to Havana Harbor. The section of the Via Blanca from Matanzas to Varadero. An autopista from Nueva Gerona to Santa Fe in the Isla de la Juventud. Older roads include the Carretera Central and the Via Blanca from Havana to Matanzas. Long-distance and intermunicipality buses in Cuba. There are two national bus companies in Cuba. Via Azul operate a fleet of modern and comfortable coaches on longer distance routes designed principally for tourists. Schedules, prices and ticket booking can be done online at any of the major international airports and national terminals across Cuba. Astrobus, a bus service in Cuban national pesos, designed to bring comfortable air-conditioned coaches to Cuban locals at an affordable price. The Astrobus lines operate with modern Chinese Yutong buses, and are accessible to Cuban residents of Cuba with their ID card, and is payable in Cuba pesos. Routes that have benefited most so far are those from Havana to each of the 13 provincial capitals of the country. Urban buses. In Havana, urban transportation is provided by a colorful selection of buses imported from the Soviet Union and Canada. Many of these vehicles are second-hand, and despite the United States trade embargo, American-style yellow school buses are increasingly common sights. On 7 key lines in and out of the city, service is provided by Chinese Zhengzhou Yutong buses. They replaced from 2008 create the famous Camelos trailer buses that hauled as many as 200 passengers in a passenger-carrying trailer. After the upgrading of Seville's public bus fleet to CNG-powered and new vehicles, many of the decommissioned ones were donated to the city of Havana. These bright orange buses still display the name of Transportes Urbanos de Sevilla S.A.M., the former owner, and Seville's coat of arms as a sign of gratitude. On the 18th of July 2007, it was reported that Cuba will receive 100 urban buses from Belarus before year's end, destined for use in Havana. Cuban State Council Vice President Carlos Lage declared in 2007 that Cuba would receive 1,142 more Chinese buses for urban transport before year's end. Automobiles. Since 2009, Cuba has imported sedans from Chinese automaker Geely to serve as police cars, taxis and rental vehicles. Previously, the Soviet Union supplied Volgas, Moskviks, and Ladas, as well as heavy trucks like the ZIL and the KRZ. It is estimated that there are some 173,000 cars in Cuba. Old American cars in Cuba. Until the 1960 embargo, most new vehicles came to Cuba from the United States. Until the 1960 United States embargo against Cuba ended both importation of cars and their parts. As many as 60,000 American vehicles are in use, nearly all in private hands. Of Cuba's vintage American cars, many have been modified with newer engines, disc brakes and other parts, often scavenged from Soviet cars, and most bear the marks of decades of use. Pre-1960 vehicles remain the property of their original owners and descendants, and can be sold to other Cubans providing the proper traspaso certificate is in place. In 2011, the Cuban government legalized the purchase and sale of used post-1959 autos. In December 2013, Cubans were allowed to buy new cars from state-run dealerships. However, the older American cars on the road today have relatively high inefficiencies due in large part to the lack of modern technology. This has resulted in increased fuel consumption as well as adding to the economic plight of its owners. With these inefficiencies, noticeable drop in travel has occurred from an average of nearly 3,000 kilometers per year in the mid-1980s to less than 800 kilometers per year in 2000-2001. As the Cuban people try to save as much money as possible when traveling is done, the cars are usually loaded past the maximum allowable weight and travel on the decaying roads, resulting in even more abuse to the already under-maintained vehicles. Hitchhiking and carpooling as a result of the special period in 1991. Hitchhiking and carpooling became important parts of Cuba's transportation system and society in general. In 1999, an article in Time magazine claimed, "In Cuba, hitchhiking is custom. Hitchhiking is essential. Hitchhiking is what makes Cuba move." Waterways. Corto River. Ports and harbors. Cienfuegos, Havana, Manzanillo, Mariel, Matanzas, Nuevitas, Santiago de Cuba. Merchant Marine. Total 3 ships. Ships by type: cargo ships, passenger ship, refrigerated cargo ships. Registered in other countries. 5 airlines. Besides the state-owned airline Cubana, the 2 other major Cuban airlines are Aero-Caribbean and Aerogaviota, both of whom operate modern European and Russian aircraft. One other airline is Aerotaxi. Airports. 133. Airports with paved runways total 64, over 3,047 meters, 7, 2,438 to 3,047 meters, 10, 1,524 to 2,437 meters. 16. 914 to 1,523 meters. 4. Under 914 meters. 27. Airports with unpaved runways total. 69. 914 to 1,523 meters. 11. Under 914 meters. 58. Gallery